Namaskar and welcome to In Focus. Kamarpal Singh Gill is not just India's best-known police officer, but sometimes its most controversial. This week he's in the news both because of the views expressed in his recently published book, Nights of Falsehood, but also because of the news that he's going to be involved in restoring law and order in Assam. Today we hope to talk to him about both issues. Mr. Gill, I want later to touch a little on your new assignment in Assam, but first I want to start with your book and some of the salient points you've made in it, and about how you see the present situation in Punjab. And maybe I should begin with a very simple question. Are we perceiving a resurgence of terrorism in Punjab today?
Not really a resurgence, but I think a few tentative, shall we say, forays into Punjab by the terrorists to test the waters, to see the reactions. And I'm afraid till now the reactions have not been as they should have been.
So what you're saying is these forays could become full-fledged terrorism if they're not combated severely.
Yes.
And they're not being combated.
They are not being combated in the manner they should be.
The Akalis say that these aren't even, as you call, forays. We spoke to Surjit Singh Barnala recently, and he said these are stray incidents. They could have happened anywhere. There's no hint of potential terrorism in them.
Mr. Barnala has never taken note of terrorism, even when he was the chief minister. He started off by saying that these are all stray incidents. This is history repeating itself. And that's what I have mentioned in my book and in one or two articles also. That the failure, to put your head under the sand is a characteristic of many people in this country who would not like to see what is happening.
So you're saying that Surjit Singh Barnala is like one of the three monkeys. He refuses to see terrorism even when it's staring him in the face.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, you said a moment ago that the response of the Akalis to what you call forays was not what it should be. Where does it fall short?
You see, initially, if you see, the statements in the wake of various terrorist incidents were that, well, this is the Kashmiri terrorists who are doing it. This is the ISI who's doing it. And these are not Punjab terrorists. And one felt that the thesis was that since these are not Punjab terrorists, we are not supposed to protect Punjab from them. We can only protect Punjab from the Punjab terrorists. And they have this very naive sense that since they have been voted to power, therefore terrorism has ended. Their whole mindset is such that they cannot perceive the wish.
Let me understand, you're saying that they refuse to recognize it, and instead what they choose to do is to call it by a name so that its origins go outside Punjab and thus their responsibility diminishes.
Initially they started off that way, but now they have started saying that yes, there are a few youngsters who have either come back from Pakistan or who've been motivated locally to undertake terrorist acts. And suddenly there has been a spate of arrests. Every day one or two people get arrested, their photographs are published.
So there has been a change in the Akali attitude to terrorism, as you put it.
There has been a forced change. It is not a conscious change. There's a difference.
Is it a sufficient change?
It is not a sufficient change.
So still there is things that they are not doing. Give me an idea of the sort of things you'd want them to do so that their grip was better and so that this foray into terrorism doesn't become full-fledged terrorism.
You see, let's take Punjab as such. There has been an all-party meet on Punjab on the terrorist strikes. I don't think any political Akali leader has stated that this is terrorism. They're calling it violence, they're calling it stray incidents, but they're not calling it terrorist strikes. The word terrorism is not being used by them. So how do you even start thinking about it?
So you're saying that if the mindset is such that they won't call a spade,
yeah,
then they clearly can't tackle it properly.
that's true.
Okay, let's talk about the Akalis, because in your book you are actually fairly critical of them. Your central core is a belief that the Akalis do not have the commitment to fight terrorism. Why do you say that?
As I said, I mean, their mindset is such. You have, you have one of the important Akali leaders sitting on a stage with the SGPC president, where saropas are being given to the relatives of assassins of Mrs. Gandhi and others.
You're talking about the Akali Finance Minister Kamaljeet Singh?
Yeah.
In Baisakhi time at the Damdami Taksar?
No, I think it was in Amritsar itself.
So you're saying that his presence would have encouraged potential terrorists?
They would.
Because we put this to Surjit Singh Barnala, and he said that Kamaljeet Singh had done nothing wrong by being present at the ceremony.
If that was the statement, I think it's a shocking statement by a person who wanted to be the vice president of this country. And nothing can be more shocking than this.
In your eyes, is that statement typical of the Akali response to the potential terrorism that's now lurking in Punjab?
It is. It is, and that's why I say that they can't.
Let me quote to you something you write in your book about the Akalis, and so that I get it accurately, I'll quote it. It says, you describe them as a group of interested politicians and activists whose role during the ascendancy of terror was more than ambiguous. What you're really saying is that many of them are hands in glove involved with militants. Isn't that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that involvement can be of various degrees. You need not be actually participating in acts of terror. But if you go and attend the bhog ceremonies of those who have died in encounters, if you attend ceremonies where saropas are given, well, that is an ambiguous role.
You also say that the Akali philosophy is one that encourages a ghetto mentality. It creates the myth of a victim community. What exactly do you mean?
It does. It absolutely does. I was talking to a gentleman only the other day, and he says that he left Punjab sometimes in 58, 59 after finishing his studies from the same college where I studied. And he's a Hindu, Punjabi Hindu. And he says when he left, there was no question, there was no Hindu-Sikh question at all. I left Punjab in 56, 57. There was no such question. But he says after a few years, he went back to Punjab, he took a taxi from Chandigarh to Ludhiana or something. And the taxi driver was only talking of the discrimination which is being, which the Sikhs are being subjected to.
So you mean the Akalis have somehow made Sikhs conscious of a discrimination that may not even be the case?
Yes.
They bring out the worst of the Sikhs.
They bring out the worst of the Sikhs.
And do they do this consciously or do they do it accidentally?
They have to keep a following, they have to have a vote bank, so they do it consciously. There's nothing accidental in this.
There is almost, therefore, some sort of conscious evil design because they're aware of what they're doing, but their political compulsions mean they have to continue to do it.
You see, it is like this, that I'm told that in private conversations, they are appreciative of the role played by the police in combating terrorism. But not one of them, not a single one of them can stand up and say that the police did a good job in finishing off terrorism in Punjab.
Because they're scared that somehow they lose their vote bank if they stand up and say this.
Yes.
But why would they lose their vote bank if they said it?
They think they'll lose their vote.
So in fact they're wrong.
They are wrong.
Okay, you've been very strong in your criticism of them, not just today, but in your book as well. Let me put to you what they say of you. Gurcharan Singh Tora says that your book is a bundle of lies, that you're politically motivated, and that you're a Congress agent.
I mean, this is not the time to be a Congress agent. This is the wrong time for me to become a Congress agent. Anyway, I don't take their criticism of me very seriously.
But tell me something, why do they...
I would not take them seriously, but for the fact, the amount of damage they've caused to the Sikhs. Otherwise, I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here and talking to you about Akalis at all.
Why do they react to you in this almost visceral fashion?
Because they know in their heart of hearts that I'm telling the truth.
Is that all?
and that I know quite a lot about them.
What sort of things do you know about them?
I wouldn't do what Mr. Chavan did in that interview where he said that he has a big this thing of papers about Mr. Sharad Pawar and he'll release it to press one day. No, no.
But do you have a cupboard full of Akali skeletons that you can rattle?
I wouldn't call them skeletons, but one knows what they're all about.
In other words, you have a sort of lever over them and they are worried about that.
No, not that, not that. Because they have this very glib and plausible explanation, which they'll give again and again, that I'm a Congress agent. And
under what circumstances would you be moved to reveal these things you know about them?
No circumstances at all. I would never.
Then why are they scared about your knowing this?
Because they tend to judge people by their own, you know, shall we say, on the basis of what they themselves are.
If the Akalis continue with their present attitude to what you call forays, will we see full-fledged terrorism in Punjab?
You see the talk today in the villages, what they call in Punjabi, कि जो हवा चल रही है, is that yes, it is coming back.
And do you believe that?
One doesn't distrust what is spoken by the common man.
So you're seriously concerned about the future of Punjab under Prakash Singh Badal?
I am. I'm very seriously concerned.
Okay, let's leave this discussion there. I want to carry on talking to you about other things in part two, but for just now, we have to take a commercial break. We'll be back in just a couple of moments. Don't go away. We want to continue this discussion just after the commercials. Welcome back. Gill Saab, let's talk a little bit about your forthcoming assignment in Assam. We all know you've been invited by Chief Minister Mahanta. We all know you've agreed to go. But in what capacity are you going?
That I don't know as yet.
You don't know or you won't reveal?
No, I don't know.
What will your responsibilities be?
That also I don't know.
In which case, why have you agreed to go?
Well, one agrees to go because there's a task to be performed.
But you don't know what the task is, and you don't know what your
No,
role
the
in
task
performing
is known. But how I'll fit into the team which is, responsible for performing this task is something which I don't know as yet.
Okay, many people are concerned about the state of Assam today. For some, it's a question of railway bridges being blown up. For others, it's a question of militant killings. For some, it's a question of kidnappings. How do you perceive it?
You see, basically, the thing is control of terrorist groups which are there. All these are manifestations of terrorism. Trains being blown up, bridges being blown up, people being shot, or army convoys being ambushed, patrols being ambushed. Now, all that is a manifestation of terrorism. So unless you control.
So you see Assam as a state that at the moment is experiencing terrorism?
Yeah.
Would you go stronger? Is it experiencing some form of insurgency?
They use the word insurgency also. But it is, I don't think there's much difference between terrorism or insurgency.
They're interchangeable.
They're interchangeable.
In a recent interview, you said that India needs a new anti-terrorist law, but you didn't say what sort. So can you tell me?
You see, what has happened is that we had the Terrorist and Disruptive Activities Act. And through sheer misuse in some of the states, it was allowed to lapse. Even that law was one of the, shall we say, the mildest anti-terrorist laws in the world. We have laws in Great Britain, we have laws in America. We have now a law in Pakistan, which are much more stringent than what India ever had.
Give me an example of one or two provisions that you would like to see in the new law in India.
You see, basically, what are you dealing with when you're dealing with terrorism? You're dealing with groups of people who are armed with weapons. And it is the control of those groups which has to emanate. I would like to have, well, a police officer's evidence, even the sole testimony of a police officer, that this fellow was arrested with weapon in a disturbed area when that particular police officer was on patrol or was...
So are you saying that the court should not question a police officer's testimony?
Because you will not get our testimony. It is peculiar.
But what if the testimony should be false or motivated or vindictive or something else?
It is not a question of the testimony being false or vindictive. What happened in Punjab when Terrorist and Disruptive Activities Act was being imposed, was being, when cases were sent up in court? Well, the conviction rate, not that the conviction rate of any offense in this country is very high. I mean, normal conviction rate here is about 6%. In Punjab, the conviction rate of terrorism was around about 2%.
And it's because the courts had the right to question police officers' testimony?
No. It's not that. The courts would not give credence to any evidence whatsoever. There's a particular case in
and therefore, just so
which
that I can understand this, you would like a new anti-terrorist law that in a sense binds the courts to giving credence to police officers' testimonies and doesn't give them the leeway to avoid or sidestep them.
You see, what happened to Black Thunder accused? All of them surrendered with weapons in full view of the television cameras. Now, a confession before a gazetted police officer was made admissible in evidence. All that was done. It was videotaped confession. But the accused persons were just let off.
So in other words, that's an example of where a court failed to give credence to sworn evidence given by a police officer.
Yes.
Are there other measures that you would like the new anti-terrorist law
You see, for
to
instance, in another case, I remember, they said that there is no corroborative witness for the police at night, at the dead of night, when no one is moving out, when everyone is locked up in his house out of terror. I mean, it's an amazing, shall we say, an amazing ignorance of the ground realities.
But that's
in a forest area at night, a patrol is out. It apprehends two persons with weapons. Who will give evidence?
But when a court, to take up your example, when a court asks for corroborative evidence in a case where clearly there can't be any, are you also implying that this is an example of judges running scared and not doing their job?
It's a question of how they are trained.
Who are trained? The judges?
Judges are trained according to the laws of evidence. A judge has, over the years.
But you see, a judge would only ask for corroborative evidence either because he's scared to accept evidence, which he believes but chooses to doubt, or because he really has reason to doubt it. Now, are you saying that perhaps they don't trust the police?
In which I'm telling you, there was a dacoity with murder. A bank was looted. One of the bank officers was killed. I think the guard was killed. Now, this fellow was apprehended from the spot with an AK-47. Now, the judge says he's not convicted for dacoity. He's not convicted for murder.
Quite right. The judge ignored the police officer's evidence. But why?
But he says he's convicted for possession of a weapon.
That's contradictory.
It is. So what do you do in a situation like that?
Okay, I understand. And I think many people listening to you will understand the point you're making. Are there other things you would like the new anti-terrorist law, whenever it is created, to incorporate?
Well, I think it is better to have preventive detention than to have a situation in which in live encounters a lot of people get shot. A lot of innocent persons get shot.
So you would like the new law to actually have measures that permit preventive detention?
Yes.
What happens when civil rights groups turn around and say that the sort of measures they're talking about actually lead to excesses of police authority and end up alienating people and creating terrorism?
I don't think the human rights propaganda that police action creates terrorism has ever been right. Terrorism has, I mean, it's the egg and the hen story. Terrorism has always been prior to police action. It's not after police action. And this is a sort of propaganda which has become the received gospel today.
You know, you're calling it propaganda. You might actually face it as part of an opposition that you have to battle against when you go to Assam. For instance, let me put it like this. Are you confident that the Mahanta government will support you if you recommend severe, strict measures in Assam?
I think they will.
Only think?
Because without strict measures, terrorism cannot be put down.
But remember, they're a political government. They were people who themselves came to power after a Assam Students' Union movement in the 80s. What gives you the confidence that today they'll turn around and say, yes, Mr. Gill, we support you, let's carry out these strict measures?
Well, I have been in Assam for 25 years. They know that...
have you done something else? Have you put the question I'm putting to you, have you put it to Mr. Mahanta?
No.
Have you got any assurance from him that if you go to Assam...
one doesn't go on the basis of assurances. One goes on the law of the land, that this is the law which has to be enforced. And this is the way of enforcing it.
Are you saying something
No
else?
amount of saying that, look, this is our assurance, we are going to protect you, we're going to do this. It doesn't help.
But you're not worried that you may go to Assam in good faith and you may give good advice, but because it's politically difficult to accept, it might get rejected.
No, I'm not worried about that. The advice which I will give will be based on the local conditions. And it would be acceptable advice.
You'll ensure it is?
Yes.
You're confident about getting the support you want in Assam. You're confident about being able to handle the situation when you go there. When are you going?
I have no idea.
Are you going to go at all, or will you in the end not go?
I have no idea at all.
My last question. There are some press reports that because you have a conviction in the Bajaj case, it might not be possible for the government, despite their desire to have you there, it might not be possible to give you, in any shape or form, a government job.
I would not be going... you see, the problem here is not of a government job. The problem here is of a situation which is confronting the country.
You were about to say, I would not be going, and then you checked yourself.
No, you see, the main thing is that if advice is needed, and they call upon me to give advice, I'll go there. I'm not...
But it won't be necessarily a job. Is that what you're saying? It won't be a salaried job.
It may not be a salaried job, but it will be a job.
So it could be...
There is a difference. A job is a job.
It may not be a salaried job, but it will be a job. So it may be an informal arrangement.
A job is tackling terrorism there.
Quite right, but it may be an informal arrangement.
Could be an informal arrangement.
So you may not be part of the government, and you may not be salaried, but you will be based in Guwahati. You said something very important. You have clarified that it may not be a job in the conventional salaried sense.
Even the salaried job which I had in Punjab was not a job in the conventional sense, I can tell you that.
Yes, but now we're talking about being different even more. There may not be a salary at all here.
Doesn't matter.
Can you tell us a little bit more, because you're intriguing now in the little hints you're giving out about the nature of what you're going to be doing and how you're going.
That, I haven't been there.
But since you're saying it may not be a salaried job, you clearly have some idea of the capacity in which you're going.
No, not as it.
That's all you're prepared to say? Gill Sahab, I can't clearly push you into saying more, but you've given us a few hints, and there I'm afraid, because time's run out, I'm going to have to leave it. Thank you very much for talking to In Focus.
Thank you.
That's it for this week. We'll be back next week with another interviewee, but for today, from Mr. Gill's residence, which is still in New Delhi, but might soon be in Guwahati, goodbye.